I'm Jennifer Robinson, and I'm one of the presenters. We're going to be talking about recruiting, preparing, and retaining teachers of color. Just to give you a brief overview, we are all from Montclair State University, which is a public Hispanic enrolling institution, aiming to be a serving institution as well, with 21,000 undergrads and graduate students. About 1/3 of them are students of color. We graduate over 500 teacher ed candidates. Approximately 12% of our students are students of color in our teacher ed program. The Center of Pedagogy pretty much coordinates teacher education across the 4 colleges. And we've had a longstanding collaboration between Newark Public Schools and Montclair State University. In 2018, we were awarded a Diversifying the Teacher Pipeline grant from the New Jersey Department of Education. And we're going to be talking about that grant today. Advance the slide. Most recently, we won our 3rd U.S. Department of Education Teacher Quality Partnership 5-year grant to continue and deepen and expand the work we began in 2009 to recruit and prepare and support anti-racist, socially just educators, primarily teachers of color, for the Newark and now the Orange Public Schools as well. So, our teacher education program has several commitments and a philosophy that is grounded in specific values about the purposes and aims of education. And some of those commitments and values include providing all students with access to knowledge, to make sure that our teachers are leaders, that they are stewards, so to speak, of the best possible practices for their students. We believe in nurturing students so that they can all reach their highest potential. And certainly we believe in democratic practice in schools and in classrooms, innovation and responsiveness to change and developments in our communities, our students, and our disciplines, and certainly a commitment to equity, inclusion, and social justice. And we believe in connecting to the communities that we send our students into through strategic partnerships and collaboration and services. You can go on with the slide. Next slide. So to do the work of recruiting, retaining, preparing, and sustaining educators of color requires an awesome team. And so today you're going to hear from the leaders of each of these aspects of this work. First from Dr. Majid Azal, who's the Associate Professor of Teaching and Learning. Then from Dr. Carolina Gonzalez, who is the Assistant Dean of the College of Education and Human Services, to talk about recruitment and retaining pre-candidates of color. And then Dr. Tanya Maloney, who is an Assistant Professor of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Bree Pickauer, who's Associate Professor of Teaching and Learning, and yours truly, Jennifer Robinson, who was Professor of Teaching and Learning and Executive Director of the Center of Pedagogy at Montclair State University. Next slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to jump right in, and I'm speaking today about Red Hawks Rising Teacher Academy, which is really the beginning of our pipeline. It's a grow your own partnership, and it's a partnership between Montclair State University, the Newark Board of Education, and the American Federation of Teachers. Next slide, please. So the Red Hawks Rising Teacher Academy has 2 components. The Teacher Academy is a 4-year career technical education pathway to teaching that's approved by the New Jersey Department of Education. And the Red Hawks Rising Teacher aspect of the Academy is a dual enrollment program at MSU, which is an opportunity for Teacher Academy students to earn up to 30 credits. Our specific aims are to recruit students from the Newark community, prepare them to enter the teaching profession, and support them through teacher education program at Montclair State University, and then return back to the city of Newark as teachers of record. I'll talk more about the multiple pathways that students can follow, but this is our explicit goal that we want to support students. And then our program aligns with the need to increase Black, Indigenous, people of color, and particularly Black males in the teaching profession. Next slide, please. So in terms of the relevance and impact, we directly address two areas of need: the lack of diversity in the teacher workforce, particularly among Black, Indigenous, and Latinx males; the need for career and technical education programs that create a pathway to careers in education. We don't have time today to share this video, but I just wanted to at least include it here so that if you would like to visit our website, it's called The Teacher Like Me, and it's a 2.5-minute clip of one of the graduates of our teacher residency who really was and continues to be part of the inspiration for this work. She, as a high school student, had the opportunity to work with residents from our program who taught her physics, and she had it in her mind that she wanted to go through the teacher education program at Montclair State and return to Newark to become a physics teacher, and that's what she has done. So you'll next slide. So in terms of our relevance at the state level, what we're trying to address, and you all, I see many familiar faces, so you're familiar with the statistics that the teacher-student race gap in New Jersey is one of the largest in the country. The white teacher workforce in New Jersey is 84.4%. The Black and Latinx teacher workforce in New Jersey is 13.2%. The Black and Latinx student population in New Jersey is the next slide is in terms of our impact at the local level. We'll talk about the demographics of the Red Hawks Rising Teacher Academy. So this is the, and it's reflective of the population of the city of Newark, give or take some percentage points, but predominantly African-American, Latinx, with a percentage of students who are of immigrant origin, who identify as white, who are of Portuguese background, Native American, bi or multiracial, biracial or multi. So in terms of the course progression for our program, the Career Technical Education program, we have two cohorts, one at Eastside and one at University High School. We now are in our second year, so we have a 9th grade group and we have a 10th grade group. Our courses are focused on social justice and why teaching matters. So we're not focused on exposing students to how to teach, but really wanting to situate students in the larger conversation about the context of education in the US and locally. How did we get here? How did we get to the point where we have the kinds of disparities that we do? What are the ways in which our communities exhibit commitments to education and support the education and support families within our communities? So our 9th grade course is an introduction to socially just education, modeled after pathways to teaching, Dr. Margarita Bianco out of the University of Colorado in Denver. And our 10th grade course is based on participatory action research, and it's called Youth Education in Action. Our plan for our 11th grade course will be focused on disability and inclusion and language and culture. And our 12th grade course will be a field seminar. And as you can see, each of those courses carries a field experience. In terms of the, you can go to the next slide. So once students are in the 11th grade, they're able to participate in the dual enrollment program, which will be courses offered by Montclair State University on site at the high schools. And the courses will be 100 level courses that will introduce students to general education credits. And some of the courses listed here are some of the possibilities that we hope to and we plan to make a decision locally about which specific courses will be offered, but this is the general sequence. So students will take up to 6 credits each semester, and then including the summer, giving them the opportunity to earn up to 30 credits prior to graduation. Next slide, please. Once they've graduated high school, if students have earned up to 30 credits, and the reason I say up to 30 credits is that we really want to attend to specific students' needs. So if there are students who feel like they have the capacity and the time and to take on two college courses a semester, we're here to support that. If there are students who want to take one college course a semester, we're also here to support that possibility. And then throughout the entire process, they'll still be a part of the Teacher Academy. They'll still have the opportunity to earn their career technical education credits and have the field experience. What's important about this slide is that once students enter MSU, if they have earned up to 24 credits, actually, they'll have advanced standing, and they'll be in their first year. After their first year, because they would have technically earned up to 60 credits, they will qualify for a substitute teaching license, giving them the opportunity to earn income in the teaching profession, potentially go back to the city of Newark where they can then substitute teach. And then they can select any major, or they can select teacher education. Of course, our goal is to support them to choose teacher education, but we also recognize that students may develop different interests along the way, that given that they're entering the Teacher Academy in 9th grade, it's a very early stage, and the research in dual enrollment shows that it's really too early to ask students to make that kind of commitment. So our explicit goal is to really expose them to the profession and to provide them with the kinds of critical lenses that we think will allow them to be successful. If they do choose teacher education, they can choose the P to 3 pathway, the K to 6 pathway, or the P to 12 pathway where they would focus on a content area. And then they can choose to be either single certification or dual certification. And that's my last slide.
Thank you. Thank you, Majida, for that very detailed overview of Red Hawks Rising. I'd like to I would like to walk you through how do we focus on preparing our students in order to apply and actually be successful in our teacher education programs. And so as part of as Dr. Robinson mentioned, the New Jersey Diversifying Teacher Workforce Grant that Montclair State University was awarded, it really facilitated us or helped us to ramp up the work that we've already been doing with regards to the preparation of teachers, as well as the recruiting and the supportive structures of those students who we are of prospective students who we intend to successfully enter the program. And so in thinking through that, we knew that we wanted to, in thinking through that, we knew that we wanted to focus the support of students in a three-pronged approach. So peer mentorship, recruitment, and preparation and support. You must know, to better understand the context, that when students come to Montclair State University and indicate their desire to become teachers, they're not automatically in the teacher education program, right? They're provisionally admitted, and they have to go through completion of certain courses, as well as passing the praxis, as we all very familiar with that, right? The praxis score exam. And so this goal of this focus is to really support them prior to their full admission to our teacher education program. And we do this through, one, peer mentorship. And so we've decided to develop a peer mentorship program where we are hiring qualified peer mentors. We're training them as well. These mentors are students of the teacher education program who are juniors, perhaps first semester senior students, and are really focused on wanting to give back, right? And wanting to support our students of color walking through what they went through initially. We've developed a mentoring framework that pulled from community cultural wealth model, that pulled from other theories that focused on competencies, and the main tenets of it included resiliency, academic success, leadership, social justice, and mental health awareness. And the idea is that all of the programming, all of the conversations, everything that we do tied and mapped to those 5 tenets, right, of the framework in itself. We also the intent is also to build community and provide students with a sense of belonging, because it can feel very lonely when they're going through this, and it can feel very and sometimes dehumanizing when you're taking a test over and over and over again and the student sees that they're just not passing it, right? And so the idea is to provide them with that support. We've also provided them with intentional recruitment strategies, where we've partnered up with 2-year colleges in developing affiliation agreements, as well as doing intentional programs and having presence in those respective county colleges in order for students there to feel that they have a connection to us, more than just, hey, I know that's Montclair State University, and I know that that's a teacher education program, but really knowing that they will have a network of support and care once they get here. And part of that, it was also helping them academically be savvy academically while they're in their county college, and knowing what courses will help them transfer seamlessly into the university. We've also utilized tracking systems. The university procured a client relations management system that helped us track our students very in a sophisticated way called Slate. I'm sure many of your institutions, 2 and 4-year institutions, use it, which also helped us develop inquiry cards and track students where they are in their interests to come into Montclair, and then target and segment our communication to them. And then lastly, talking about the support structures for testing and what that felt like. We've hired a test preparation coordinator that really focused on understanding the nuts and bolts of not only taking exams and strategies of doing so successfully, but also understanding the exam in itself. This test prep coordinator took the exam, the praxis score herself, and was able to help students navigate accordingly. Along with that, also this test preparation coordinator partnered with the teacher ed program and its advisors to help come up with specific strategies to help our students successfully have a vision and an understanding of what their success will look like in the program once they're in there, and then the struggles, and validating the struggles that they were going through prior to admission to the program. Some of the lessons learned include we knew that we needed buy-in and collaboration from our leadership, our team members, and our allies. So it wasn't enough to just say, hey, we got this great grant to ramp up the work that we have been doing. It was a matter of holding monthly meetings with everyone who had a direct and an indirect relationship to the success of students, right? And helping them understand why and how they play a part in the success of this initiative. Also, in terms of leadership, we involved and engaged our dean and other key leadership players to be able to help us advance some of the initiatives that we wanted, in addition to promoting it as well, right? We've also, we've developed that shared vision and commitment, both externally and internally. In addition to that, we know that 50% of our New Jersey community college students were students of color. So creating a seamless pathway for community college students was only going to, one, primarily benefit them in their endeavors, but also benefit not only our university, but our program, right? And then also challenge the way in which we did our work, right? How do we cater and design the holistic student engagement approach that we have for our traditional college going students along to our transfer student population, right? How do we kind of change our practices? In addition to that, we develop clear processes and pathways for high school students. So many of what Dr. Zoll was previously talking about, right? Really focusing on how do we think about this pipeline in a more sustainable way. And then, and almost lastly, the mentoring relationships that students built on have been essential to the success of this. They have, they've created a social media presence. They have events that are really engaging and really meaningful. They have Black Lives Matter events. They have events that focused um, on mindfulness, focused on a book circle. So they're just very intentional about the work that they did and also helped students understand that they were not alone. And then lastly, we knew that we needed to think outside of the box relating to the alignment of responsibilities and priorities to what we were committed. So while folks have their roles and responsibilities, we really worked hard to try to push everyone and our team in thinking beyond what they have been used to doing, right? So how do we do the work that we're already doing, but then maximize it to serve a larger population and or make it more intentional so that these students know and understand that we're here for them, right? So I'll hand it off to my colleague, Dr. Pekauer, for this.
Hi, we're actually going to, because of time, we're not going to do this breakout room, but if you could just go to the next slide. We want you to think of, we are going to do a breakout room if we have time after all three segments of this presentation. After we just heard from recruiting, Dr. Maloney and I are going to now talk about preparing, and then Dr. Robinson is going to conclude us with talking about induction. And then you will have an opportunity to talk with one or two other people about what resonates for you given your context and what do you aspire to incorporate. So keep those listening points in mind because you'll have an opportunity to discuss that with a colleague. And you can go on to the next slide. Tanya will get us started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Maloney, and Dr. Pekauer and I work together on the Preparing Teachers of Color sort of prong of this process. So far what you've heard is what our team has done using the Recruiting Teachers of Color grant funding to get students of color to Montclair State. And so some of the things I wanted to just highlight is that we know that students of color need preparation for college. They need to understand how to do college and how to understand how to navigate college. You've also learned about how we support students with the test prep. We understand that that's another hole that often gets students of color out of the pipeline for teacher preparation. And so where we see our students, where Dr. Pekauer meet them, is in their senior year when they are in their clinical year and they're doing their student teaching. So what you've heard so far is how we engage students at the high school level. Also, how do we get them to Montclair and to sustain and maintain at Montclair? And then now you're going to hear a little bit about the Newark Teacher Project, which is where we prepare the students once they come to us.
Next slide. Okay, Tanya, I thought that was you, but I'll go ahead and I'm not sure, so I'll go. So the Newark Teacher Project, it's, as Dr. Maloney said, they come from our traditional program. So once they've been admitted to Montclair State and they've been admitted to the teacher education program, they enter a special cohort called the Newark Teacher Project, which is open to all of our undergraduate and graduate students and pre-K through 12th, whatever degree they are, whatever certification they're pursuing, they can join us in the Newark Teacher Project. What needs to happen is that they need to be ready to start their clinical year. So they do their clinical year with us. It's a 1-year intensive. We do have a summer program where we really ground the students in a social justice, racial justice lens and framework that they then apply to all of their classroom teaching, so that they're really viewing, they all are preparing to become teachers in Newark, and they really become grounded in understanding the community cultural wealth of Newark and use that as a lens to think about the curriculum that they develop as well. We're very careful about who we place them with in terms of mentor teachers. We aim to place them as much as possible with mentors of color and mentor teachers who share a vision of social and racial justice and are open to learning more and open to encouraging and allowing their resident to engage in social justice, racial justice curriculum development within their classroom. There is an application process to join Newark Teacher Project, and really what we're looking for in that process are students who have this interest in social and racial justice, who have an interest in working in an urban setting, and who are open to learning. So they may not come with fully formed racial consciousness or anti-racist lens, but they, through the interview process, demonstrate that they're open to learning and have a desire to learn. In the past, we've been supported by a Recruiting Teachers of Color grant, and we have our fingers crossed that we're going to be supported by a different grant in the upcoming years. Next slide.
Okay, so so far what you've heard is that you know, the students that come in, these are students that we select, we handpicked them, and so they create this family of students. You can see one of the images there of our cohort from last year, and so this is a small family environment of predominantly students of color. And as you already heard, that we have a focus on anti-racist teacher preparation. And this begins with a paid summer orientation. We understand that our students have financial obligations beyond even the tuition, right? And so this grant and future grant funding has allowed us to make sure that students are able to join us full time for the first few weeks before the official school year starts. And so also, as you also heard, we have a team of mentors that join us that we also select, and they receive much of the same curriculum as our students with the focus on racial and social justice. We've had speakers including Bettina Love and Sean Ginwright. You can join us this evening at 5:30 p.m. for the Q Speaker Series event, where we will be joined by Dr. Subini Anama and Maria Choi Pena, who will be talking about the intersection of supporting students' racial, linguistic, and needs around their abilities. So please join us. It's another event that is continuing to support our students' understanding of justice in education. And also, we have much of this we've already said. The only other thing I want to add there is our 360 support and one-on-one meetings. This family environment also includes a high level of support, where if there is a student that is having some sort of need, whether it be in the classroom or in their coursework, that we come together as cooperating teacher, faculty member, also the street team member. And the street team member are the folks that do the supervision. So this is someone who is, you might have them, I guess they're in different institutions, I imagine, have different terms, but they are the person that does the observations in the field of the resident. We refer to them as our street team. because they're going out into the streets. And so we have 360 meetings with all of these folks to ensure that we're constantly on the same page about the needs that each of our students have. And this is really important given, again, we want to ensure that our students of color not only come to us, but that they successfully graduate from our program.
So I think we'll move on to Dr. Robinson because of time.
So research tells us that one of the challenges of recruiting talented and capable teachers of color is actually retaining and sustaining them so that they thrive and persist in their role as change agents to bring justice and equity into the school environment where they're going to teach. Next slide. So we also recognize that induction of new teachers is more than the state-mandated mentoring during year one. And so, and our partner district agrees. And so we certainly do as much as we can and to bring our all 3 years, the first 3 years, leading them up to tenure in our induction work. Very often, our teachers are going into schools with more than one of them entering in a school at a time. That way they have a colleague who, another cohort member who has been prepared the same way they have been prepared to support them as well. And we negotiate that with the school district, and our district partner agrees that that's a great strategy. Our induction program begins with the hiring process that educates our candidates about the overall district itself and provides a lens that our candidates are seeing through to see how they might begin to invest their talent. It leverages collaboration among and across cohorts of teachers prepared in our program, and it promotes teacher leadership by tapping into our graduates' expertise to provide professional development for those who are coming after them. And it's also responsive to the needs of our novice teachers, focusing on problem solving, support, and broad participation. Next slide. So the induction support that we provide is really differentiated for year 1, 2, and 3, and it's based upon the developmental level of the teacher, particularly as, again, trying to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our teachers of color who are beginning their journey as career teachers. And at each level, teacher reflection is developed. We also suggest that students also, that our graduates also engage with their cohort members socially and in the same ways that they did when they were in preparation phase, socially, as well as supporting each other's mental health in a way that sustains them. And then also focusing on social justice and equity, which is emphasized through their annual projects, such as their teacher growth stories, guided action research, and teacher leadership projects that get them beyond the classroom, but actually influencing the school as overall. Next slide. So what lessons have we learned about induction? And again, this whole grant focused on recruiting teachers of color, retaining them, especially in the pre-admission phase, preparing them, and now inducting them into the district so that they are sustained and they are retained. Certainly, induction involves strong school-university partnership, expert mentors and coaches who model anti-racist practices, and also those who have skill in classroom pedagogy. So we are constantly focusing our attention on anti-racist behaviors and building equity into our schools. Knowledge of children and teacher development as well. High quality induction also serves the needs of new teachers and those who work with them to stem attrition, not just the teachers, but also their mentors and also the administrators. And it focuses on the actual problems that are shared by new teachers in context-specific ways and helps to sustain their mental health and well-being. So now you're going to have, next slide, another, hopefully 3 minutes to share what resonates with you regarding preparing and sustaining teachers of color. Bree, do you want to take this?
Yes, so I'm about to send you to a group for 3 minutes with 1 or 2 other people. So please share what has resonated for you. Any questions that came up, we'll come back and try and address any questions that came up. A lot of people are taking the opportunity to leave. And so some of the rooms have 1 person, so I'm just rearranging people.
Hi, Renee. Those of you that are still in the main room, you can join the breakout room. You would have either gotten a message, or if you've lost that message, if you go to your controls, you can choose breakout room and it will say join breakout room. You have options where it says more, ... in your controls at the bottom of your, well, mine are at the bottom of my screen. You can click on join breakout room.
Nobody came to my room.
Yeah, yep. A lot.
One thing you might want to just do is have that conversation here. You're in the main room, but it doesn't mean that you can't have that conversation here in the next few minutes.
So maybe John and Beninder and Timothy and Beverly. What resonated with you and what do you aspire to incorporate?
Well, what I liked, I was thinking about it and we were thinking, and I liked that slide, and I came in a little bit late, the one that had the layout of the peer mentorships, recruitment, preparation, and support, because it gave, in that one slide, 3 ways to think about it. And maybe I kind of think comprehensively. So what areas would we have to develop, or where could we look? Or even if we only did one of them, or, you know, how do we think about it? It gives a way to think about it. So that was a great takeaway for me.
Michelle, you work in the Center of Pedagogy, right? And so the whole conversation around how do you like rethink the work that you are already doing to ensure that you're catering and you know, and making sure that you are supporting the work and the initiative. Do you want to talk about that? Like, how did you challenge yourself, or what have you started thinking about in helping support the work?
Sure. We have started to utilize, I would say, a more holistic approach to our advising based on the experience that I had working with the Newark Montclair Urban Teacher Residency and working with my lovely colleagues in NTP. So when we have concerns about students now, I find that we're no longer working on them in silos. We're trying to work on them as a team. And so really bring everyone in to intervene as early as possible and to really tackle all the issues that the students facing from that. I mean, the old adage that more heads are better than one definitely is applicable. So that's been really helpful, just to have extra ideas, extra supports when working with students, to kind of scaffold their experience as they move through the program. So that's something that has been really beneficial to me in my role, for sure.
It also helps that you have a counseling background too, right? Like just you employing that skill set, and obviously you being student centered, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Helps.
Folks are going to come back. I'm sorry to interrupt. Folks are coming back in 30 seconds. I I don't think we're going to have time for Q&A. So Jen, if you want to just close us out and thank everyone. Does that work for folks? Okay.
And they have our contact, or they will have a contact info. So in the event that they want to contact anyone, they can.
Carolina, maybe we can go back to the first slide. That might be the best slide for us to go back to.
All right, folks are coming back now.
Is everyone back yet? Okay, so because we had our own technical difficulties at the very beginning, we want to just end our time together by thanking everyone for your participation. We truly appreciate a lot of the questions that did come up in the chat. We hope that we answered as many of them as we could. And if you are interested in learning more about our work, you can certainly visit the Montclair State website and learn more about our work there. Also, I think we can all put our email addresses in the chat and let everyone have access to us so that you can contact us at any time. And we just want to thank you again for participating in today's session, and we hope that you will also fill out the evaluation form, and you will probably get a chance to go to the next session that begins at 4:05. So bye-bye, everybody.